pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great, thank you. We'll have a roll call of the board members, please.
Augustinelli. Augustinelli.
Here.
Robertson.
Here.
Klein.
Here.
Racine.
Here.
Yulee.
Here.
DeGood.
Here.
And Fudge.
Here.
All right, thank you for that. And we'll move on to our first period of public comment. We do have several public hearings tonight. One for the Lake Point Planned Unit Development, major amendment, and another public hearing for the zoning ordinance proposed amendments on substantial construction definition and lighting. So feel free to make public comment at that time for those, or speak your piece now. State your name and your address, please.
Sure. Good evening. My name is Chris Ramsey. I'm at 2700 North US 31 South. I'm the franchise owner of Chick-fil-A. And first, thank you all for the work you do. Over the last 3 years, we've identified traffic congestion in our part of the corridor on US 31 and South Airport Road is a little bit challenging. We have about 1,200 to 1,500 guests per day. And the conversation about a connecting road has been something that's been a topic locally, it seems like, for some time. And we've had an opportunity to talk with John and some of the local property owners, and I'm here tonight in support of the project that Daniel Stern is working on with Lormac Stern related to the connecting road. So far, we've had conversations with Brookfield Mall, the Williams dealerships, and Mr. Stern from the new project. So just wanted to publicly state my support for a connecting road, and we're excited to get all the property owners together and see this thing gain momentum. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else interested in stepping up and making public comment?
Chris,
Mike,
he's not hearing you.
no,
Your mic.
move your mic
Chris.
closer to.
Better? Okay. Seeing no one step up, we'll go ahead and, one gentleman walked in. Did you want to make some public comment? All right. Well, then we'll move on to review and approval of the agenda and statement of any conflicts of interest.
Move we approve the agenda.
Support.
Motion by Racine, support from Robertson. Any further discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same. Motion passes. We'll move on to the minutes from our May 28th, 2025 meeting.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Support.
Motion by Fudge, support by Klein. Is there any further, John?
I had one comment on that on page 3, third line from the end of the topic on item 7. I think there's a word that doesn't make sense there that probably needs to get corrected to something that does. Commissioners talked about the largest of the project. I'm not sure if we meant size, scale, largeness. I don't know what was meant, but it wasn't that. Do you see where I am?
Yeah.
Yep.
Third from the last line of item 7, it's on the middle of page 3.
That's line, thank you.
Steve's got it highlighted on the screen. If to clarify, you could just say the large scale of the project.
Works for me.
Okay. Would you like to amend the motion to accept the change
Accept it as modified.
and the support?
Yes, support.
Very good. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same. Motion passes. All right, with that, we will move on to correspondence.
There's one item on your desk. It's an email from Will Bartlett regarding future ownership of the Grand Traverse Mall and his concerns regarding that. That's it for correspondence.
All right, thank you very much. We'll move on from that to reports. Is there anything from the Township Board, Molly?
Yeah, I have a couple of things. We've had an uptick in encampments, illegal camping in our parks. We've had to move people out from the Commons, River East, Boardman Valley Trail, and Miller Creek. Since the Pines closed, the overflow is naturally going other places. So that's one issue we're dealing with. Our park staff is doing a good job with it, along with the police officers in the area. So I think they're staying on top of it. Garfield Township is preparing documents along with the city, agreements on the water at the Commons. And hopefully that project will be done by the end of the year. So those are the two.
Great, thank you. Anything from the Zoning Board of Appeals?
No meeting, we're having one next week, though.
Okay. I can report that the Parks and Recreation Commission met. We reviewed plans for the trail system for the Commons, and those plans are being worked on and finalized to go out for bid. The park staff has been working with Gordy Frazier to revise the bathroom plans for the River East Park, and that should be going out for bid in the near future. I don't think there's anything else that I remember, Steve.
We also talked about potential lighting at Silver Lake and River East as a future project.
That's right.
And also related to working on the CIP, which Planning Commission will be studying as well. Something I don't think we talked about specifically, but there was some coverage about the playground going in at River East, which has apparently been a hit. I've only driven by it once, and it was really busy. Everyone else has said it's packed every time they go down there. So that was exciting to see such good use out of that.
Remind me, is the parking, I haven't been by there yet recently. Is the parking lot done, or is the parking lot going to be expanding soon?
Will be soon. That's part of the bidding
what I
out
thought.
and rebidding out some of these projects.
Which will accommodate more people more easily to
Yes.
use the playground and the dog park.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And with regard to the lighting, thanks for bringing that up. What we're looking at is providing some lighting at some of the parks so that the dog parks and perhaps the playgrounds are available for use later into the evening in the fall and spring. So that right now everything's dawn to dusk.
Mm-hmm.
And so those township facilities would be lit and available for use by our residents as we're considering this at this point.
Yeah, we have to get details. We had like a back of the napkin calculation, but getting some details. The Civic Center is a county park where it has that like lower like lighting, just kind of the area that is of focus and doesn't impact the surrounding area too much. So we're seeing what's feasible. So if that can be feasible in ours too. So, all right,
Thank you.
That's about all we got.
All right, Joint Planning Commission.
We meet quarterly. I think I gave a report after our April meeting, and our next meeting will be next month, I believe. So I'll have a report sometime next month, I would think.
Okay, thank you, John. Well, on to the staff report.
Yeah, but in the packet is our June 2025 monthly report from the Planning Department. This was provided to the Township Board. They received it yesterday. Don't really have anything to add to that, unless there's any questions.
Any questions from the commissioners? All right. We will move on to the next item on the agenda, which is unfinished business, PD 2025-50, Lake Point Planned Unit Development, Major Amendment, Public Hearing.
All right, so this is the, on Oak Hollow Drive, portion of the Lake Point Planned Unit Development across from Medalley Park, right on the Boardman-Onaway River. It's a currently undeveloped portion of that PUD. There was an original plan for office back at the onset of this PUD in the 1980s. The file code being 1987 was when this PUD dates back to. Proposal is to do two multifamily residential buildings, have a total of 24 dwelling units, one building with 14, one with 10. You had the introduction at the last meeting and set the public hearing, which will be tonight. A couple updates since then, and also the applicant has even provided some updates since this letter went out. We did an updated completeness checklist, just asking for some clarity on the lighting fixtures, making sure that they were often the cut sheets have kind of several different variants that can be chosen. We want to make sure the one that was chosen was under the 3,500 Kelvin for the color temperature, and so they actually did provide staff with updated information indicating that. It was just kind of highlighting the one on that sheet, which will be included in the next packet for you guys. They also sent us a detailed bike racks they supplied. That will be in the next packet as well. And we reminded them of the stormwater review. This would be an agency review, but just to initiate that, and they were able to submit their application check to do that. The other thing, Plan Commission received at the study session meeting, it was presented as correspondence, but we included a copy in this packet as well, a second letter from the Watershed Center asking some questions about the supplemental shoreline regulations, as section 535C of the ordinance. So we actually put comments on that entire section into our staff report. Just at least as far as we see, we didn't see anything proposed. If going forward, if there's just some sort of either condition or just some more ongoing, like, always keep that in mind. But as far as we saw, there was nothing proposed that would be in violation of that. The Boardman Lake Loop Trail is already in place, and trails can be in a riparian buffer according to our ordinance. The only work that we saw proposed for within the riparian buffer was just to connect to that existing trail, so just to enhance that. The applicants did provide a just separate sheet just highlighting the riparian buffer just as an additional sheet to their plan set. But otherwise, we didn't see anything specifically. We just wanted to comment on that specific portion of the site, since it has been brought up a couple times.
So, Steve, if I understand correctly, then the Watershed Center presented a letter that cited that this project should be reviewed with careful attention to that portion of the ordinance, which you have done, and the applicant has presented materials, but they're not citing any specific concerns related to the project.
As far as I see in the letter, it seemed more broad to me, and that's why I wanted to at least highlight, okay, here's what's in the or here's what's both in the ordinance versus what's in the plan set. But yeah, I didn't see anything, and we've only received the letters. We haven't actually spoken with them, which I think could be helpful if we want to just say, could you clarify if there's anything specific you want us to address? But,
sounds like they've taken that opportunity twice to send you a letter. And
yeah, so,
okay,
but
very
yeah,
good.
That's all we've got. Yeah, otherwise it's a public hearing, so however the chair would like to proceed.
Well, we'll go ahead and open it for public hearing. Anybody who would like to make a public comment regarding the Lake Point Planned Unit Development Major Amendment, please feel free to step to the podium, state your name and address, and give us your thoughts. And seeing no one getting up and running to the podium, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. But thank you for all attending tonight, and turn it back over to the commission. What's your pleasure? John?
Looks to me like it's pretty clear sailing. We reviewed it, and doesn't look like anybody's calling our attention to any problems, but what we saw, it sounds like it fits, it's appropriate, and they're minimizing removal of trees and vegetation, and seems like it probably is worthy of going forward with it.
We certainly like to see more housing going in. Well, if no one has any further thoughts, there is a recommended action. However, it sounds like, Steve, what are your thoughts on the itemization that you provided? Are any of those items able to be stricken from the motion at this time?
Potentially, I think they address most. Also, being not a decision, the only motion is to ask us to prepare findings of fact. It's not like there's essentially conditions to that. If you wanted to end it at, let me put up the motion too. I guess it would end at family dwelling units at parcel, that parcel number, and just period, and not worry about conditioning it on anything, since they either addressed it, or it can be, if it's still an issue at findings of fact, it could be a condition at that point. But they did provide some additional information addressing most of those. So.
Is that item 4 still something that needs to be addressed?
A trail easement area. I think that was something that still needed to be addressed. I know they've been in discussions with TART, and that was part of their submittal package, but I think formalizing that as part of a, once it's actually at that point, I think is still something that's worthy.
Or would it make sense maybe to delete 1, 2, and 3, but leave 4 in, just?
We'll just do that.
I don't have a problem with that. Sounds like you were making a motion.
I'll be happy to make a motion to direct staff to prepare findings of fact for review of the July 9th, review at the July 9th, 2025 Planning Commission meeting for application PUD 1987-02-M, submitted by SPPEC Holdings for a major amendment to the Lake Point Planned Unit Development to construct 2 buildings with 24 multifamily dwelling units at parcel 05-212-002-00, subject to the applicant identifying a proposed trail easement area and preparing a public easement access declaration.
All right.
Support.
All right, motion by Racine, support by Robertson. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same. Motion passes. Thank you. All right, we'll move on from that to our next public hearing item, PD 2025-51, zoning ordinance proposed amendments on substantial construction, definition and lighting, public hearing.
Planning Commission has both studied this at some study sessions, and we've had an introduction and a scheduled public hearing last month. Tonight. We had an introduction last month. It's scheduled public hearing for tonight. This is the proposed text amendment to a couple different sections, adding a definition for substantial construction, amending some language where that affects in sections 423, 424, and 425, and then some upgrades to lighting. I don't think there was any changes from the introduction. I think the only motion from last time was to set a public hearing. The other thing staff did, because the draft motion or potential action of tonight would be to forward it to the Township Board with a recommendation. There is a section 421F in the zoning ordinance to for the township to review certain factors for consideration of a zoning ordinance text amendment. So staff put some, essentially, would be like the equivalent of findings for an application, but evaluating it on those factors. Consistency with the master plan, if there are any change conditions that apply, effects on health, safety, and welfare, anything related to public policy or any other factors. So, but otherwise, the language, I think, has been the same as you have seen.
All right, with that, why don't we open it for public hearing? Anybody who'd like to make comment regarding the proposed zoning ordinance amendments, please step forward, state your name and address, and please be heard. All right, thank you very much for attending. We will close the public hearing, and what is the Planning Commission's pleasure?
I would make the motion that the proposed amendment to the Garfield Township zoning ordinance as attached to Planning Department Report 2025-51 be recommended for adoption by the Township Board.
Support.
I heard a motion by Augustinelli, support by Robertson. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, same. Motion passes.
All right.
All right. Thank you to staff for the extended work on this one.
Okay. Well, thank you to Plan Commission for studying it, helping guide us. The only note I had on that for myself was eventually, if it's published, there were some graphics in there. If they need to be cited, any sources, we'll make sure that gets in the actual version of it. But
Okay.
yeah, we're excited to forward it to the board for their consideration.
All right, with that, we will move on to our next item of unfinished business, PD 2025-52, Scussle Property, A Agricultural Rezoning Finding of Fact.
Okay. This is also one you've seen a couple times, introed a couple months ago, and the public hearing was at the previous meeting in May. This is the parcel on Hammond, two parcels on Hammond Road. Just west of Town Line, near the Traverse Field, near Hughes Drive. The proposed designation would be agriculture. They are currently both in conditional zonings. One is conditional ag, one is conditional general commercial. So this both provides an opportunity to simplify, but also be more consistent with the master plan, future land use, and there's mostly either wetlands on or nearby both of these sites. There's otherwise some drainage easements held by the Road Commission, other than the conservation easement managed by the Regional Land Conservancy. And not only is it seeming consistent with the master plan and future land use, anytime we've talked about this corridor, it has been cited to not have overly amounts of commercial. Sorry, allergy season. Okay. To not have over amounts of commercial, so kind of removing one out of a conditional general commercial seems to be consistent with the goals of that corridor and as recited in that part of the master plan as well. But otherwise, you have draft findings for your consideration.
Thank you, Steve. Feel as though we've been over this one pretty thoroughly already, but is there any further discussion to be had?
Just a comment that I think we all appreciate these people coming in, going through the process to downzone their property. It's nice to see.
Not a type of application we see every day, but one that certainly makes sense for when you're surrounded by some environmentally sensitive areas. So.
Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make the motion that findings of fact for application Z-2024-01 submitted by Chris and Anita Scussle to rezone parcel 05020-00 306 West Hammond Road from its current conditional zoning of CG General Commercial to A Agricultural Zoning District without restriction, and parcel 05024-019-20 478 West Hammond Road from its current conditional zoning of A Agricultural to A Agricultural Zoning District without restriction be presented in Planning Department Report 2025-52 and being made a part of this motion be adopted.
Support?
We have a motion by Klein, support by Agustinelli. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same. Motion passes. Pat, would you like to read that next long one?
I'll continue. Motion to recommend approval to the Township Board of Application Z-2024-01 submitted by Chris and Anita Scussle to rezone parcel 05-024-020-00 306 West Hammond Road from its current conditional zoning of CG General Commercial to A Agricultural Zoning District without restriction, and parcel 05-024-019-20 478 West Hammond Road from its current conditional zoning of A agricultural to A agricultural zoning district without restriction, with the following conditions 1 and 2 as listed in Planning Department Report 2025-02.
Support?
One clarification, I think the planning department report, the written draft motion says it's 2025-22, but it's 2025-52.
52?
Yeah, I see that.
Oh,
Good catch.
Yeah, it's here at the front, yeah. 52
All right. Good catch.
with,
Molly, Pat, you both accept the
yeah,
change?
with
I'll
with the
accept that
change,
change.
-52.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, same. Motion passes. All right.
Sorry for the
Burning
long.
through stuff tonight.
Sorry for the long draft motions, but there were two parcels that both had conditional zonings on them. Yeah.
All right.
Pat for reading those out.
Next on our list, we have new business, PD 2025-53, Macy's redevelopment, CP Plan Shopping Center Site Plan Review.
So we received an application for redevelopment of an anchor store at the Grand Traverse Mall. It's also known as the former Macy's store. And the applicant who was here this evening, we had discussions with them. They recognize there's going to be some probably additional outstanding items that need to be addressed in the plan, but we thought it was a good opportunity for at least for them to use this to introduce the project and their intentions of redevelopment of the site. As noted in the report, there's kind of four primary areas that I just want to mention. There's the kind of dividing up of the store itself. It's roughly overall about 102,000 square feet when you include all of the space areas. But in terms of the retail areas, they want to define about 86,000 square feet of that will be for tenant spaces. So there's one about 25,000 square feet, one about 19,000 square feet, one a little over 17,000, and then another one at 25,000 square feet. So that does not include the additional service areas, which would bring that up to the 102,000 square feet. They are altering the entrances to that location. There's it'll be closed off from the mall, and there will also be some of the changes in the exterior entrances. There's a northwest entrance will be closed off. That will be partly due to the expansion of the loading docks on the north side of the building. And then the remaining entrances will be adjusted from what they have traditionally been. The entryways into the Macy's will now be adjusted so that they're the main entrances to those four tenant spaces. And then, as I mentioned, the loading dock will be adjusted. It'll be expanded in terms of number of truck bays, plus they'll have additional compactors and dumpsters to service those four tenant spaces. And then finally is proposed to do a outlot of approximately half-acre outlot for a drive-through restaurant on the site. So that there will be additional details that will need to be included as part of the site plan for that. So we've done just a preliminary review in terms of, this is the planned shopping center district, so it does require site plan review. Even though these are uses permitted by right, it does require review and approval for site plans by the Planning Commission. Generally, as we're looking at this, a lot of the items that are outstanding are primarily, because it is a built situation, are fairly minor in scope. But we're looking at this in terms of the expansion of the area, in terms of the outlot, and then also the reconfiguration of those spaces in the interior, and then the additional loading docks. As was mentioned earlier in the meeting regarding the connection to the north, that would be, it's something that we've been wanting to see for quite some time here at the township, is a connection between the Grand Traverse Mall and the Lowe's. The Lowe's, when it was approved in the early 2000s, it's part of a PUD, and they are responsible for extending a drive south of Lowe's towards the mall property. So we just need to, there'd be that contribution from Lowe's, and then it's just a matter of trying to figure out that connection from their drive down to the mall property. We think it would help for a lot of circulation within there. That would essentially be a private drive, but it would be one that would provide a lot of ease and access to the site, particularly when the busier months, getting out to the light over at Lowe's, as well as connecting to some of the other businesses like the Chick-fil-A, the new hotel that's located there as well. So we've been at times kind of facilitating that, and it's good to see that the property owners are interested in pursuing that, because I think that will create a great value for this effort, and as well as some of the other stores and businesses in the area. That's all I have right now. Like I mentioned, the applicant is here to present.
Any questions of the planning commission, or should we have the applicant step up and see if they have anything to say? Molly?
Just one, I know you're early in the process here, but I'm looking at this monument, proposed monument sign. We have one at the entrance, current entrance, and looks like they're proposing another one. I think you guys are working with them on that.
Yeah, so that sign applications aren't typically part of site plan. They'll have to go through the zoning administrator to make site plan application. So we'll go through that route.
Good, thanks.
Zoning administrator may choose to, they have a provision in the ordinance, they can choose to forward an application to the planning commission. I think some of the ones at Cherryland have done so. So you may see it, but they need to make an application to the zoning administrator first.
We've been pretty careful about having sign after sign after sign down Airport Road.
Is there anything the applicant would like to speak to?
You wanted to present some of the drawings?
Sure, yeah, I'll,
Yeah.
Mark will do the technical, I'll just
Okay,
do a quick
perfect. All right,
introduction.
go for
So,
it.
good evening, my name is Daniel Stern from Lorimac Stern Development. Thank you all for your time tonight. With me is Mark Drain from Colliers, formerly Rogvoy Associates. Our two companies have been working together for about 30 years. And what's cool is stuff that we built 30 years ago is not only still looks good today, but it's all full. We're at 95 to 98% occupancy at all times. And I think that's relevant tonight when we talk about this. People asked, because we bought this building about 10 or 11 months ago. And the first thing everybody asks is, did you know they were closing when you bought it? So the answer is yes, we did know they were closing, and we bought it because the real estate it's terrific real estate. But it is complicated because we only own the Macy's. It's 8.5 acres. And next door to us, we have a mall that is largely vacant in the interior now and is publicly on the market for sale. And we've got a JCPenney building that, while they're still open, is publicly on the market for sale. And then the Target store, which is great, and that's the anchor on the other end. All of the mall has an operating easement agreement, which kind of ties everybody's hands on what you can and can't do. So one thing I wanted to be clear on the record is to say that with regards to the connection road, it was something that staff said was something that was very important. We looked at it. It would go on to our property and then go out to the road. We are also in favor of it, and so on the public record, I'll say, I can't grant the easement without the others saying yes to because of the operating easement agreement, but we are in favor of it. Our goal here is to take what was an anchor store that those really all gone by the wayside for the most part. There really isn't anybody. Ironically, the last person that really built a new department store that I know of was Macy's, and we built it for them in Evergreen Park, Illinois. And obviously, they left here, but we want to get this into kind of a sustainable thing that'll last for the next 25 or 30 years. So we are making smaller stores. I will say, I can't say names, but I can say categories. So one of them is a gourmet food store with organic foods, which would be terrific. One is a national bookstore, which I also think would be great. One is an apparel, but more geared towards the outdoors, and another one is an upscale apparel store. These are names that have been around for a long time. They're going to be around for a long time, and I think will be great for the community. The small outlet we have is not, it isn't like a fast food. We call it fast casual, so, a Chipotle-like use. So again, I think something that would be good for the area. And with that, I mean, we're going to make the building look like a beautiful new building with new facades and natural materials that'll go well with what we think, at least for what the area is. And that's what we'd like to do. And obviously, because the building's vacant and because the mall is really starting to not look so good, I drove around it when you talk about signage, and a lot of the signs that aren't on our property, the bricks are coming off. One sign, the panels were all gone when I walked in, some of the directional signs. So, we want to make a statement and an investment, and we want to make it quickly to try to make it so that the others around us also follow suit. Mark's here to answer any technical questions, and I'm here to answer any other general questions. And again, thanks.
Questions from the planning commission?
Don't have any now. It sounds like what staff was reporting or suggesting is we table this. I guess there's more completeness stuff that you guys need to check a few more boxes, and then once it's all there, we take a deep dive and study it.
Yeah, I just, from our standpoint, we're looking at it, as much as this, as Daniel mentioned, they do have the easement agreement similar to Cherryland, so there are things that are shared parking. We've also been looking at it as the ability to be self-contained, should that be altered, because we don't know necessarily what the future holds in that. And pretty much as they're designed there, they can accommodate all their parking needs on their site. Even with the outlot being built, I think the outlot development makes sense from the standpoint of activating the space, similar to the value that kind of the Starbucks brings and what we've seen over at Cherryland. But we've been looking at it as primarily as a self-contained site plan. The drive-through restaurant will obviously, they'll have to meet standards, and we'll see how that all works out. But that's what we'll work with the applicant to further refine it. But knowing that it is, essentially built out and it's just altering some of the configuration of it, seems to be fairly straightforward.
I would think any thoughts that we have that we might offer up as initial reactions might be useful. Holly?
I think it's great. Traverse City really is in need of a women's clothing store and some of those other things that you've mentioned, so happy to have you.
Thank you.
I think you had mentioned there was a different team working on the out parcel itself, or someone else, if someone else is looking to develop that specifically?
Well, the restaurant group would be developing.
Their developer, okay.
Yeah, the restaurant group would be developing the restaurant for the
Yeah, okay.
fast casual Mexican.
Mm-hmm.
We'll call it a fast casual Mexican restaurant.
Which is-
We'll be
yeah.
building it. We won't be building that.
Exact tenant to be determined.
Correct.
Yeah, we get it. Yeah.
Will they be able to provide details on that site plan and then kind of incorporate it into yours?
Yes, we're going to make one,
Yeah.
the way that the agreement is, it's essentially the opposite of what we're talking about with the mall. There's going to be
Yeah.
one application that's going to be comprehensive for both.
Right.
Obviously, the bigger deal is the building. And yes, it is essentially your point on standalone. The old building was 102,000 feet. Because when you separate out these buildings, there's always kind of space, you just can't utilize all the space. So we technically are only utilizing 86,000 square feet, and we're going to build an additional 2,100 square feet. So net, we're losing 12,000 square feet of gross leasable area, or the need for 50 or 60 parking spaces, depending on how parking would be.
Right, yeah. But yeah, having them in one, we'll just get to evaluate the whole thing together. And then
Yes.
currently, this is all one parcel. So that will also help determine if there's ever if there is a split, or that would probably run through assessing first, but kind of determine what might be needed on that front as part of just one application.
Molly?
So on that connector road, is there a process that we're going through? We have support here, and we have other support, we've heard, but are we bringing that all together and getting
Well,
that moving?
yeah,
or who's
the sticking
requesting?
point, quite frankly, has been the lack of, excuse me, engagement from Brookfield. And they're, not only do they own the mall, but they own I think about a 3-acre parcel, excuse me, just north of Day Drive, which they've indicated that they would be willing to sell, but it's also kind of blocking, or needs to be part of that roadway connection. And actually, the township is party to it, because we have a cell tower at the end of Day Drive, which, quite frankly, that cell tower is also kind of in the way, but we're hopefully, I think, working with the engineers, a way to kind of work around that. We talked about, with the road commission previously, about shortening Day Drive. They do not want to have any connection, and we don't want to have any connection to Day Drive because of the way it would spill traffic out onto South Airport. So that would be shortened, which gives opportunity to have more space to work in terms of getting that connection. So from Lowe's down to the mall, and then connecting to the back end of like Williams Chevrolet and Chick-fil-A and the hotel and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
But it's something that will help to facilitate in any way that we can make that happen.
Mm-hmm.
We've had work with our consultant, Gordy Frazier, did do some engineering design, at least some initial drawings, and that may be another way that we can help facilitate that as well.
I think potentially it could be tied to this application specifically. I know Lowe's is tied because there's a PUD, and Chick-fil-A is being a special use permit, so those were both like directly in their RDOs. This wouldn't have an RDO specifically, but still could potentially be tied to, it would meet the master plan, which talks about connectivity of this specific area and just connectivity generally. And I think we even highlighted this connection on the master street plan. But like somehow to at least mention it as part of that, to tie them as well, or to tie the application in anyway.
Okay.
Well, I'll make the motion that application.
If I can, I want to make one comment
Okay.
first, Joe, and then I'll. If you reviewed any of the past meetings forgive me, but the development that we just approved of the on the north side of the building,
The Ollie's?
Ollie's. Thank you.
Ollie's Bargain Outlet at the former TJ Maxx.
Thank you very much. I, for one, expressed a great deal of consternation about the elimination of the internal connectivity to the main mall. It also gives me pause and concern about I, like Molly, am very excited about what you're proposing to do. I think it's a good thing. I recognize that you have limitations as to what you can control, and also recognize that it's surely in your best interest to see the whole mall location succeed. But if you could give us some peace of mind in your future presentations about the ways which you project being flexible regarding however the remainder of the mall might be bought and utilized, redeveloped, or whatever, it would certainly give me some peace of mind to just say, okay, there's a future here for this redevelopment working with whatever happens in the future.
Right. If you don't mind, just so we can, obviously, there's something to think about for the next meeting, because it's on your mind, but it's on my mind as well, because we own this asset and we're planning on spending a tremendous amount of money where our property next door is for sale and it's not looking good. And I don't know how or why, but in our career, we redeveloped 7 malls in Michigan. 2 in Grand Rapids, North Kent Mall, it's not a mall anymore, but it's full. The Center Point Mall, which was across the street from Woodland, it's full, it's not a mall anymore. We still own the Macomb Mall, that is a mall, and it's thriving, and we just turned all the stores to the exterior. They don't have entrances to the mall, only a couple of them do, and it's a terrific mall. We have another one in Bay City that, again, they're Target closed, we don't own the Target. It's been dark for 8 years. We don't own it, we don't control it. We lost a Yonkers department store that we did own. We put Hobby Lobby in. They're opening, actually, they're opening this Friday, and Hobby Lobby's a nice tenant. But even Bay City, we own the mall part, and it's still a decent mall, but it's really not traditional retail anymore. And the success of Bay City has been putting all the stores on the street, Marshall's, PetSmart, Dunham's, and those stores don't have entrance to the mall, but it's bringing people in so that we can, in Bay City, we kept a portion of the mall. Here, the gourmet food store, obviously, I've never seen one kind of, open to a mall, and that's the one that's proposed where it says Space D right next to it. That store, even though it's a quarter of the size, will bring in, well, let me think, about 5 times the revenue and 10 times the traffic of the Macy's store, the whole Macy's store, and that's just a quarter of the development, and that's really the driver. So, for sure, this will help the mall. We are definitely in favor of the mall configuration changing over time, and we as owners will be flexible in changing the OEA so that if somebody wants to do a different plan, they can. This one is, it frankly is very difficult, not only because of the bifurcated ownership, but if you look at where the Pennies is in front of where the mall parcel is. And so if the mall parcel wants to do something and the Pennies box is there, it becomes somewhat complicated. So I think what the good news is, Target's on one side, they're doing great. They spent a bunch of money. I think the staff mentioned on a remodel, which is the key to knowing that they're going to be around for a long time. That's your one bookend. Getting this full on the other end and having, stores like big national stores like this, you have a bookend on the other end. It puts the pressure on the middle to do something, because I will tell you, I'm seeing what's happened with other mall. There's some New York companies that if they buy this mall, their goal of it is going to be to just take the cash that they can, and it dwindles down, and they just kind of leave it, and then at the end of the day, it's gone. Just like we've seen, I don't know, it's Benton Harbor. There's probably 8 or 9 malls that were bought by Westland Mall right now. I met with the mayor and the staff, and they've got an owner. They can't get him to do anything. So I'm with you, but I think what the best thing we can do is get it energized with stuff that will be around for 20 years on this side and the other side, and it'll make the rest healthy.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Joe?
I'll make the motion that application SPR 2025-11 submitted by Daniel Stern for the redevelopment of an anchor store at parcel 05021-05400 be tabled, subject to the following, addressing the outstanding items in the completeness review. Any additional information the planning commission deems necessary should be added to this motion.
Support.
Motion by Robertson, support by Nelly. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same. Thank you for your time.
Thanks.
All right, folks, next on the agenda, we have PD 2025-54 Aero Park CP Plan Shopping Center Site Plan Review.
So this is essentially another retrofit of a large store. This is looking at the former Big Lots store at the Cherryland Center for a application from Aero Park for reuse of the store and converting it into, a portion of it into an indoor trampoline park, with the remaining portion of it to be in retail space. So we've kind of been treating this similar to other reuses and adaptive reuse of some of the properties at Cherryland Center, starting with the curling center, which is kind of at the opposite end at the former Kmart. So there's gone through that. We've had the K1 karting facility. We have the Drivers Philharmonic. There's also the dog park as well that's kind of gone through this process. And again, since this is kind of a built-out space, there's not a lot that's really required. A lot of the infrastructure is in place, but we did go through our completeness review and identified some outstanding items. Probably the one thing that we always look to have in these locations is to have while it's built out, it's been in place for roughly 50 years. So we want to ensure that there's the integrity of the parking lot is there. So we advise for an engineering inspection of that along with the storm sewer system, just to make sure that things are operational and that it's still in good form to serve these businesses that are investing into the Cherryland Center. So that's primarily the main items. There's also the some of the landscape needs to be restored. There's also a sidewalk that would have to be installed per the non-motorized plan, and as we've seen in the other parts of the Cherryland Center, there's been those installations of sidewalk that will be connected, and actually with this location and a couple other locations, we're getting fairly close to having that all completed according to plan, thanks to these investments that are being made. But the applicant is here to answer any questions.
Any thoughts from the planning commission before the applicant speaks? Go ahead.
My name's Kevin Query. I'm helping the owner out, or the tenant in this case, with this change of use. If there's any questions, happy to answer them.
Have you done this at another location?
As far as a redevelopment?
Yeah, redevelopment or, yeah.
Yeah, I was actually involved. I'm on the board of the Traverse City Curling Club, so was familiar with doing all that and the TSO and everything there. So.
I guess I've got a question for staff regarding the recommended, perhaps recommended motion. It sounds like we'd be approving this, but then it says subject to addressing the outstanding items in the completeness review. Seems like we need to make sure that all that stuff in the completeness review has been approved to everybody's satisfaction at this level, and then it gets approved. No?
Well, I guess they probably should have been listed out there as part of the motion, but we just felt that those were fairly minor items that could be conditions of approval.
Yeah,
Can you walk us through them?
Sure. All right. So one is just the seal on the plan, which Gosling Zubek did this. We're utilizing the comprehensive development plan for the Cherryland Center, so that shouldn't be any issue. Just the highlighted areas in yellow. Lighting is only required if there's going to be any changes. There are some legal non-conforming lights on the site, but Kevin actually informed me that they aren't going to be making any changes, but it's just something that we alert if there are, to the applicant. Should there be any changes, they would be required to put in. The landscaping, there's some of the restoration of the landscaping islands is needed, the plantings that would go in there. Really, I think the only thing on that.
That's the same.
Same thing.
Language.
There was existing trees there that just need to be restored. No dumpsters are proposed. If there were any, they would just need to provide details. They indicated to me that there aren't, but we just want to make sure that should that happen, there would be. Bicycle parking spaces, so bike racks, they will need to provide those. And then this is just the requirement that I mentioned regarding the engineering review, which they'll have to provide an escrow and submit that, and then Gordy Fraser will be, this is similar to what we've done with K1, did it with Cherryland Center, Symphony Orchestra. I think that's it.
I think I'd be more comfortable if we're going to approve it, that it's actually subject to the conditions, and then talk about landscaping, township engineer review, providing plans showing bicycle spaces, that sort of thing. But otherwise, the way it's worded about addressing outstanding items in the completeness review, I don't know how that, I don't see how that's enforceable. What does that mean? So I think they ought to be conditions.
And adding to that, I'm concerned at least about the condition regarding the statement there'll be no trash bin. Doesn't this seem like the size of facility that would require, there's a kitchen and stuff in here, I think, that's what I saw, correct?
I do believe, but I don't believe it's going to be a full food service, quite like a restaurant per se.
Big Lots did have a dumpster when they were there.
I mean, there's an existing dumpster from Big Lots. I mean, this isn't going to be a larger dumpster than anything that would be there, but I can't imagine that there would be.
Is the existing dumpster from Big
The
Lots?
existing
not.
dumpster, if it's not screened, is that screened?
I don't.
It's not, the dumpster, I don't believe the dumpster is there
Okay, so
anymore.
that'll require an
It
enclosure.
was removed.
Okay.
It's no
Per the
longer
ordinance.
there, or are you saying it's no longer
It
there?
was out in the open when it was there, and it was not screened or in a corral.
Yeah, you would need that.
And I'm sorry, forgive me, but I understand that you have familiarity with developments here,
Correct.
but you're here representing you are the developer? You're
Representing
here
the tenant that's going in, the applicant. The applicant couldn't be here this evening. They were
Okay.
traveling, so I'm here to answer any questions. I'm familiar with what they're doing. I've been a part of the process in terms of their plans, everything that's going in there.
So you're a consultant, friend?
Consultant.
Okay.
Yep.
I understand.
How
I
do
agree.
others
Go ahead,
feel
John.
about whether there ought to be some conditions listed, and if we decide we want to do that, we give staff a couple of minutes to jot
Yep,
them
that's what
down?
we're doing right now. We're gonna take those that are listed and we'll adjust them and put them in a.
Yeah,
Yep,
I
that's
think they were
fine.
mostly phrased as, like, we could just take the sentences that were highlight, most of them, and
Yeah.
put them in there.
Yeah, pretty simple,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
but I think they ought to be conditions.
Okay, we can prepare that.
And they are things that staff will do. I mean, most of
Yeah, they
these-
would have to, those are
Things are
required
going to
before they
you.
can go get a land use permit.
But I don't mind having them listed.
Sure.
And what are the requirements that you provided pictures of the parking lot, which is in a substantial state of disrepair?
So that's,
Um,
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
So, yeah, that's why we wanted, that's why we was just showing the evidence of that, because I think it was pretty severe. I think that's probably more so than in other areas that we've seen at the Cherryland Center.
Mhm.
But that's typically what we've done, is had Gordy Fraser go out there and inspect and make recommendations on what to do. You know, in the past, they've, identified what improvements are needed to bring that up to reasonable use.
And if I may, we've already contacted the landlord per the arrangement for the lease. The landlord's responsible for that. So we've already reached out to get them going on repairing that, because that is their responsibility.
Is this a piece owned by Mr. Kumar?
Correct.
So if we made improvements, if the township engineer suggests, and if we all thought it made sense to require that there be some improvements, and if that's a condition, if the owner wants to start getting lease payments from a prospective tenant, the owner would have to go ahead and make the improvements to the parking lot, right?
Correct.
Yeah, and I mean, I gotta say, based on, I rely on Gordy Fraser's expertise in this matter, but based on my own personal opinion and experience, there's some substantial work that needs to be done. And I, for one, won't be satisfied with just a bunch of cold patch or hot patched dumped in these holes. There's a throughway past this development that provides access to the rest of the development, and I think we would be remiss in not providing some sort of conditions. And I'm curious, this is interesting, it's not just a few potholes here. I mean, this parking lot is literally falling apart. And I'd hate for us, for you, to miss the opportunity to leverage whatever sort of objections we could appropriately make to require the landlord to make substantial improvements to this parking lot in order for you to get a lease. I.e., we're not going to let you move in and improve your plan until this parking lot is substantially repaired.
Correct. So this, just to provide a little context to that, the tenants that have gone in there, they bought out the sublease that was the Big Lots lease. So technically the lease is in effect. Big Lots went to bankruptcy court, and then that lease went up for auction. So these tenants had gone into that. Now the lease does provide protections that the landlord is supposed to maintain the common areas. They're obviously shared also with the Asia buffet that's there. So certainly it is in the interests of the tenant to get this condition, but I would say there's already protections in the lease that the landlord has to provide these improvements. And as far as the township's oversight of that, I mean, I defer to your judgment on how you would like to go about that, but there is legally enforceable conditions right now that they have to improve the parking lot. And these guys, obviously,
Not enforced by Big Lots, from what I'm looking at.
Well, say that one more time.
If you're stating that as a tenant, you have legally enforced ability to demand that the landlord repair the parking lot, Big Lots sure didn't get anywhere with the landlord.
I'm not sure how much oversight Big Lots had in terms of, or how much foresight they had with bankruptcy going through all the proceedings. I'm not sure how motivated they were to improve that condition of that parking lot, but obviously these guys are motivated to get that going. From what I understand, the landlord went out earlier this week to do some cold patching, and you said that that's not sufficient. The tenant just as much wants this to be fixed as you guys. This is a reciprocal access agreement for the entire Cherryland Center, so there are also other tenants that do have some issues with the other ownerships that have some issues with this parking lot, because this is serving all of the other tenants. This would be one more gripe in a growing pile of gripes.
So suffices to say, I don't want to get into legal agreements. I'm really concerned that we're going to get a bunch of cold patch thrown in here, and it's going to be seen as legally acceptable, and it's not really beneficial to this development as a whole, which we've had problems with this landlord in the past, as I understand. So I don't know. John, Steve, do you guys have any thoughts on what sort of leverage we have to demand that this parking lot be appropriately repaired?
Well, there's, parking lots are supposed to be, they're supposed to basically be paved, and there's a description that they be dustless, and basically, if they're crumbling in this effect, they're no longer dustless. They're essentially in a condition that's really not what is typical of why we don't allow gravel parking lots in Garfield Township in terms of development.
This one's getting close.
I guess that's my point, exactly. So there is a provision in here that they have to be paved, they have to be
Like a smooth dustless surface is what it describes it as, but between the zoning ordinance and then it's also subject to stormwater review. Part of how it's laid out is that the stormwater system functions adequately, and then as we've reviewed these, each of the one is how does yours fit into the overall Cherryland Center. So it almost seems like it would need to be paved
So-
to actually have it function correctly in terms of stormwater
Would a
management.
potential condition of our approval and the applicant's occupancy be that the parking lot meet the requirements, be in a condition that satisfies the requirements of the ordinance?
Yes, yeah, I mean, the part that I'm referring to is under, let me get you this section here. It's 551E, site development requirements. It says prepared surface, except for 1 and 2 family dwellings, all parking areas, including parking spaces, parking aisles, and maneuvering lanes shall be surfaced with asphalt, bituminous, concrete, pavers, or other similar material that shall provide a durable, smooth, and dustless surface. Such areas shall be maintained in good condition, free of weeds, dust, trash, and debris. So I think this gets to a point where it's no longer that smooth, durable, smooth, and dustless surface. It becomes problematic. So, yeah, that would have to be met. And that's part of the engineer's review, so
Right.
that's some of the standards that they're using are what's in our ordinance. So that's why we have them do that verification based on the quality and condition of the pavement.
Great. I think if we have that referenced as another condition, that will be helpful to you in compelling your landlord to take care of the problem.
So these were the items in the completeness review, but listed just straight out. But it is a draft motion. If there's anything we should alter or clarify.
So I see, please include a seal of the person preparing the site plan. A lighting plan, including a photometric plan, shall be submitted for any changes to the on-site lighting. Restoration of landscaping islands, including new plantings, must occur in accordance with the zoning ordinance. Please provide specifications and locations of the new landscape materials. Please provide details of the proposed dumpster enclosure on the site plan in accordance with section 515 of the zoning ordinance. The sidewalk shown along the frontage of the subject parcel along South Airport Road on sheet 2 is required to be installed as part of the project. Please provide 14 bicycle parking spaces on the site with details for the proposed bike racks in accordance with zoning ordinance. Inspection by the township engineer will be required for the existing stormwater system and asphalt paved areas. Can we break that asphalt paved areas out into its own?
Its own thing.
Yeah, I like that. I'd like that.
How would you like to word it?
Inspection of the township required
In conformance with the
is,
zoning ordinance?
yes, exactly. And then it would be parallel language, but separates it into two separate items. So it's clearly we have two separate things we want looked at. And are there any concrete paved areas that we should also be concerned about?
You can just leave it as paved areas and remove asphalt.
Perfect. And then the last item, the site plan shall note the parking spaces, aisles and traffic and parking signage related to the project will be restriped and replaced to meet zoning ordinance and any other requirements. That's another thing. I'm not even sure where you could get pavement markings to stick on what you provided a photograph of, so. What are the planning commissioner's thoughts?
Do you want to cite the section under that number 8, that he needs to meet the standards in accordance with zoning ordinance, and put that section in there so that the engineer knows exactly what to be looking for?
Well, we can talk with them. You can add that in. I would definitely want to reference the whole zoning ordinance in case there's something in there that we would pertain,
Okay.
we don't want to so. I'm fine with the way it's worded there.
Okay.
I mean,
Want to make sure that they have something to compare it to, so that they know when they've met the standard, so.
Any further thoughts? Well, if no one has any further thoughts, would anyone like to make a motion?
Wrong, but I'm fine with it.
I'll make a motion that application SPR 2025-10 submitted by Catherine Maxon for an indoor entertainment center at parcel 05014-04902 be approved, subject to the conditions 1 through 9 as shown on screen at this evening's Planning Commission meeting.
Support.
All right, we have a motion by Racine, support by Robertson. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, same. The motion passes. Thank you for your time.
We'll make clarification next time. We'll definitely list them out as shown there, not reference it the way it was.
Yeah. Can you guys get a screenshot of that or something to us at some point? So next
Yeah.
time we have to deal with this, we'll remember what those 9 conditions were.
Yep, saved it, we'll send it to Ann for the minutes, and it'll be included in the minutes, as this was the motion, so.
Okay.
Yep. Mhm.
And with that, we are on to PD 2025-55, Harris Hills Estates Conceptual Review.
So this is a conceptual review, so there's no action on this item. It's a opportunity for the applicant to discuss their proposal for a residential development located at the north end of Zimmerman Road. There was a site condominium that was approved for this location a few years ago. That application has since expired, so it's no longer valid. There are actually 2 parcels, roughly about 10 acres each, so almost about 20 acres total. The land was rezoned prior to that last project that was approved. It was rezoned to R2, which accommodates single-family and 2-family residential dwellings. And so when that proposal went through, that project went through a few years ago, it was essentially just a site condominium. It's not part of a PUD or anything like that. The location, is there a
There's a map in here, we can also go to.
Yeah, just show that right there. So you may recall this location. It's on the north end of Zimmerman Road off of North Long Lake Road. There's the Brookside Commons PUD to the south, which is the apartments, and then there's the Lone Tree PUD to the west of this location. So this is essentially building out that location there. So applicant is here to present and discuss with the Planning Commission. We do have some additional information in there related to the site in terms of the zoning. As I mentioned, it's R2. The master plan calls for moderate density residential of 3 to 6 units. Certainly, one of the things that was talked about at the last development that was planned there was the connectivity connecting over to Lone Tree, and kind of also provided the diagram that was there previously.
Any questions or thoughts from the, go ahead, Molly.
Question, is there an easement to continue Zimmerman Road up to Harris?
So the only easement that is there right now is a water main easement that actually doesn't go along the parcel lines. It's actually kind of offset so that it would be on the side of the roadway when Zimmerman gets extended. So the location of that water main that goes north really precludes any development happening between the water main easement and the east property line. So when the previous development came through, that owner dedicated that as right-of-way, future right-of-way for the extension of Zimmerman Road, which is the plan to connect it up to Harris. Part of it, most of it is on the property itself. As you can kind of see, Zimmerman is a little off. You can see how it runs on the west side of that line. Eventually, it would have to alter, kind of, once it gets closer to Harris, is kind of meander back, so its alignment with Harris is matched at that point. But most of it is on these 2 parcels in terms of what that planned easement was.
So the previous developer had an agreement. Is there an easement or some other legal thing other than just
It was
words?
the easement was never granted. It was a condition of the approval that they were going to grant that. So we would expect something similar to that.
Okay. Yeah. We want to make sure we don't cut that off.
Yeah, I mean, that's an essential connection. And I think, like I said, the location of the water main really makes it difficult to put, anything there.
Don't want to have the fight later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got
Good.
you want to hear from,
Yeah, you want to step forward and make any comment you have?
Thank you for your time this evening. My name is Melissa Kilborn, and I'm here with my business partner, Richard Sachs. We own West Harbor Contracting, so we're excited to present our concept to you and work through any questions that you have as well. We've had conversations with John already, and in working with our architect and the civil engineer, have been doing quite a bit of due diligence on what solution could go on this property. We know that housing is definitely a community need, and we're also very invested in this location. Rich actually lives in Lone Tree subdivision. We own property in Lone Tree. Our architect grew up in the neighborhood, so we're excited about the opportunity and looking forward to hearing your feedback as well to see, what we need to do with this concept to continue it moving forward.
Question for you. Are you thinking that these duplexes are going to be in the similar price range of the duplexes that are in Lone Tree and kind of just a similar
Yeah.
all the way through?
Yep, that's our vision.
Don't the zoning plan, or, don't it have to connect to the Lone Tree?
That's our argument. That was the condition made as part of the previous development, was that connection to Lone Tree. It was part of the overall plan, was to have it connect all the way over to Zimmerman and the extension. So that is something that we would expect to see. Basically, the requirement was for that development to determine through some agreement or whatever, they just needed to provide that connection to Lone Tree. Ultimately, I think what happened was, the applicant was going to actually make that physical connection to Lone Tree, but that's what they came up with in terms of their proposal for that. It was just the township's position that there had to be some type of connection there.
So this would need some kind of connection. So this plan we have in front of us would never work. We couldn't approve it because
That would be our position, is that based on what we've, looking at the previous, this was supposed to be a part of the Lone Tree PUD at one point. So I think that's what we're carrying forward in terms of what that was intended, plus through some of the documentation of that Lone Tree PUD, it was supposed to have this connection.
Well, I would like it a lot better if it had a walking trail that come through it and connected to the other subdivisions' walking trails, and then I think that connection should be made. I don't know the name of that road that's in Lone Tree.
I think it's Lone Beach.
Is that Lone Beach?
Yeah.
Should be connected so that can go right out to Zimmerman Road.
It does not, just so you know, that in that connection, physically connection in the Lone Tree PUD does not, it falls short, it doesn't go to the property line. But we did not make that a requirement. What we basically said is it has to connect to the Lone Tree PUD. So it was up to the owners to determine how they wanted to proceed with that and make that connection work. We just made the condition that it have to be that, or at least the town board did, make that connection to the Lone Tree PUD.
So they made their connection up front with the Brookside development. That's already connected. So in your opinion,
Yeah, it's a
this
little-
don't have to be connected in the
No, I'm saying it does have to be
It does have to
connected. Now, there, just so you know, there was a little difference in that the Brookside is a PUD in itself, too. So
Okay.
that's why there was the ability to make them provide the Zimmerman extension. So that was part of the public contribution in terms of the PUD.
If staff could revisit that issue, I recall there was a conundrum regarding the fact that the Lone Tree development, their road stopped 10 feet, 15, 20 feet short of the property line, which is not unreasonable, given that you couldn't construct it right up to the property line and prepare it for a connection, given the conditions of the grade changes and whatnot. So I'd be interested in staff exploring further, perhaps even with, if required, with the township attorney, what obligation and maybe you already did this, but if you could revisit it, re-educate us. It strikes me that there ought to be an obligation on the part of the Lone Tree Development to complete their project once that connection is available on the other side. And I know we spent some time on it last time, but if you could, revisit it this time, well, I agree with Joe. We need to see that connection occur because it's part of the master plan.
Yeah, we did considerable research on this prior and worked with the township attorney. I believe the original plan for the PUD had extended it to the property line for that particular connection, although it wasn't constructed as such. As I mentioned, the Brookside was a little bit different, just that it was a PUD, so that, certainly with the increased density there and the mix of uses and so forth, they, provided some of the public benefit there. This is a little bit different, but at the same time, we did do that research. I feel fairly confident that that argument that was, research that was done that supported that connection is still intact, as would be for this development as well.
Great.
I don't think anything has changed since then, but, and I did actually have contacted the prior planning director regarding the Brookside Commons, just to have some discussion about the extension of Zimmerman and how that all went through. So I would say at a minimum that this development would need to meet the same conditions that were done for the prior application a few years ago for this particular site.
Yeah, I would agree that the conditions we arrived at, the revisions that occurred to that development plan were well-thought requirements by this planning commission, and certainly you should review that prior work, compare it with your current plan, and consider some changes. John?
I kind of echo that. I think what you're hearing, Melissa, is the planning commission is probably going to want some connectivity there. I was curious to know if you have an answer to why your plan proposes that it remain disconnected. Is that your idea? Did somebody supply that idea to you guys, or?
Yeah, not necessarily. We are not opposed to connectivity. I think it was more so the question of what is the requirement of Lone Tree to grant that access, and if it's not something that we can require, then do we put it in our plan? But, we would be in favor of the connectivity. It's just a matter of who has the final say. Is that something that the Lone Tree HOA gets involved? Does it come back to the original master plan?
Could get interesting. It seems like historically, as I recall, we're almost always in favor of connecting one development to an adjoining one. But NIMBYism reigns, and an existing development wants nothing to do with being connected with this new thing that's about to happen, and there's that tension that happens so frequently. I've got a question, maybe a little bit of a concern about the density. The master plan, you pointed out in your report, for moderate density residential is calling for 3 to 6 units an acre, and it looks like per this plan, the density would be more like 8.3 units per acre, which kind of equates to the high density in our master plan, which is not what we've got this one master plan for. So I suspect that if there's some connectivity going to happen, that automatically is going to take out some units. I'm not sure where that's going to get us. But where it's master plan for 3 to 6 units per acre, I'm going to have a little bit of a challenge in my own mind justifying why more than 6 units in an acre on average ought to be done here.
Isn't that math wrong?
41.
Yeah, 82 into 20 acres. What's that? That's 4 units per acre, not 8. Right?
I didn't try to do the math, I just read what the staff wrote.
So 41 two-family dwellings is 82. You got 82 dwellings on 20 acres. 80 on 20 is 4 to the acre, right? Am I doing something wrong?
Sounds, which
Page
page? Okay,
4 of
density.
your
yeah.
report.
All right, applicant proposed 41, okay.
Well, there's 41 two-family.
So 82
Correct, yeah.
on 20 acres.
Yeah. No, yeah, that makes more
4,
sense.
right?
Yeah.
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 How we end up with 8.3?
Yeah, I don't know how we came up with 8.3, only it must have been figured for just one of the parcels.
Were we exempting out any, like,
Yeah,
like easement area? I don't think that still wouldn't get you to
yeah, we know, we look at
8.3.
the gross area.
still would've been gross
regardless of
anyway,
what
yeah.
there is for right
You
away.
could clarify that for us next
All right.
time, assuming this comes back and there's an actual
Yeah.
proposal.
Sorry about that. We'll do a
It's 4
good catch,
units,
though.
though.
Yeah.
That's a whole different story.
It
than
was
if it's
probably
8.
calculated most, yeah, 'cause-
It fits back to a little better then, right? What'd you say, 3 to 6 is
3
what
to
it's
6
zoned
is what
for?
the master,
Yeah.
so the master
Yeah.
plan.
yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah.
Well, like I was wondering, because it's all proposed as duplexes, which is your moderate density. So yeah, that
Something
made
like-
the most sense to me.
Joe's right, it doesn't add up.
Yeah. Anyway.
So I'd like to see a walking trail through there somewhere to connect, because them people are gonna connect to the other, or they're gonna be walking on the Lone Tree walking trails are open to the public, right?
According to the PUD requirements, that's how it is, that's how they're granted, is they're open to the public.
So
So,
my,
in a PUD, now this is not a PUD.
Right.
This would be a site condo, so it's a little different, but that's, yeah.
so I'm looking for uniform, want it to be uniform if they have walking trails over there, they should have a walking trail running the length of this, and so it would be uniform, and them people would walk over here, these people would walk over there. It'd fit in better, in my opinion.
Yeah, it looks like the absolute maximum amount of building that could be constructed on this is what's shown on the site plan. I like your thought about maybe some walkability and it's not a PUD, but if we could make it not necessarily a cookie cutter that's maxed out to the nth degree, that probably would be more palatable.
Can they get to the high school if we have the connection into this duplex? Can they get through Lone Tree to the high school? Are there trails all
There's
over?
a
I think
trail connection
walkable-
between Lone Tree and the high school.
Walking.
That's another reason that might be a
Yeah,
kind of a
it's
nice.
not shown on here, but it's farther to the
Yeah,
west
the
side
area
there.
cuts off, yeah.
Yeah.
Have you guys had any discussions with Lone Tree representatives?
Not yet,
Okay.
not formally. We wanted to do this first, get your feedback, and then go from there.
They're gonna be against it.
Surprise, surprise.
There's a
Well, I think there's.
little zoomed out view.
If you
Yeah, I
go
think
up
it's-
Lone Tree Road and go
Yeah.
all the way to the top and keep going straight, that's where
Yes,
the
to the
trail
west
is.
side. Oh,
And then right
Oh,
there,
here's a trail from
yeah,
Lone Tree Road, okay.
yeah.
There's the connection down to
And
the
then
high
you can
school.
get down to the school, yeah.
Right there's your walk
There
trail.
we go,
Mhm.
okay.
Well, I think there's benefits to both developments. So for instance, the connection for Lone Beach through this development towards Zimmerman is going to allow better access to Zimmerman and ultimate, there's that connection. And then if there's The non-motorized connection allows for pedestrians, bicyclists, whatever, to connect to get over to, from this development over to the high school. So I think there's mutually beneficial connections here. And that's, I think, one of the things that's first and foremost in the ordinance when it talks about connectivity is just the ability for building connected neighborhoods, so that we're not pouring everything back out onto the main roads.
As I recall from the past development, was challenged by the earthwork necessary to address a lot of the relief. The look of this is a fairly flat plane. So you're proposing a substantial amount of earthwork in order to achieve that?
Good question. So some of the proposed units would be, well, they would all be ranch, and then some would have basements and some would be walkouts to try to keep some of the contour there as much as possible to minimize that earth moving. So that's part of why it was laid out this way, partly based on what was learned from the prior approved plan, and then working with the excavation company and the architect with the topography to optimize the land within, you know, the current roadways and the current topography. The east edge is the higher point off that cul-de-sac running along that, where those easements, right there where those trees are.
I think even in the, where was Lone Tree? This was the one that expired, the previous one. I think it was, this was the top high point?
Yes.
Yep. Okay.
That smaller road there.
Yeah, okay.
I was trying to figure out how the connection goes to Zimmerman. Under that old one, there was something called St. Joseph Street, but it looks like the dotted lines to the west, that's the stub road that.
Right.
So
And you
basically,
could-
just roughly continuing that east gets Lone Tree people out to Zimmerman.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
You would think they
Yeah.
would find that a pretty nice benefit.
And like I said, I'm pretty sure the design plans show that going to the edge of that development. And that's the one thing I, as much as I know that there is condo associations and so forth, that is a PUD. So the PUD approval that was granted by the board for the development of that still governs the property going forward, even though there are variations of ownership in terms of the land use and the land use development. The PUD is what granted by the town board that goes to that property, doesn't change. So that's what we were, when we were looking at this previously, that's where the connection was.
Has an engineer looked at that for drainage, for retention ponds or anything?
Yeah.
Is there places for them?
Yeah, so they, we had multiple conversations in regards to, in particular, the stormwater drainage and the basins for that. And the calculations that they have are based on the roadway surfaces, and then the rainwater from the roofs would be addressed on the individual lot basis. And we have the calculations for that, or I have them, they're just not on this document specifically.
And these are just conceptual plans for the purposes of what you're presenting today. We'll see much more substantial drawings for your
Correct.
later submittals? Okay.
Yeah, correct. We just didn't want to get too far down the process without getting your feedback first, so we can incorporate that at the beginning, and then put all of the efforts into that plan with the hopes that it would, you know, ultimately be approved.
It's interesting, you're suggesting that the stormwater management for the individual homes, would that include their driveways?
The driveways and the roadways were already taken into consideration. Yeah, it's just the roof rainwater that would be on the individual.
Steve or John, do we have any other developments in the township where the stormwater management, I mean, what I'm accustomed to is typically the stormwater management for all the impervious areas, including an allowance for each individual home, deck, whatever, is accommodated by the overall site
Same.
stormwater management. And then that provides a collective responsibility for the maintenance of those stormwater management infrastructure. Are you familiar with anywhere in the township where some responsibility for stormwater management has been, I can't think of the right word, but allocated to the homeowner? And then what is the enforcement structure for the homeowner maintaining that stormwater management infrastructure?
I'm not aware of any situations that, this would be something that we defer to the township engineer in reviewing through the stormwater ordinance and see how they, how this, and quite frankly, we haven't had many single-family developments or, two-family developments. It's always been apartments or condos or where it's all part of one overall development. So this is a little bit different.
Okay.
And/or where there's some kind of basin somewhere, but if it can be handled under that, like, I would, again, defer to the township engineer on how that will work, especially if there is extensive earthwork on the site, but as long as, if it works, it works, but yeah, it's a little over my head on if that will, so.
Would we typically be getting some fire department review of some of this too? And
Yeah, fire
like-
department would review this in terms of layout and so forth. The engineer would review it in terms of stormwater.
Fire may comment on that connection to Lone Tree.
I was wondering about that. So as it's shown, it looked like there'd be a connection to whatever that east-west road is to the north. I guess that's Harris Road.
Lone Tree. That's
Lone Tree.
Oh, no, that's Lone
Lone Tree.
Tree, yeah. Harris
So
is
there,
to the
this
east.
development would exit to the north onto Lone Tree Road, and it would exit in the southeast corner onto Zimmerman.
Correct.
And those are the only two proposed entry points to this so far. But if we do the connectivity to Lone Beach, that's a third point then.
And we
Okay.
would expect that. I would even say we were expecting it from Lone Tree, both with the PUD and kind of the research that was done on that previous approval. But even if there were questions on that, I think we'd still want this one to provide that connection to the edge of their own property line.
Yeah, that might just be one more point that could be made to the Lone Tree folks if the fire department is also supportive of the idea of a connection there. If,
Yeah, and they're looking at the benefit for not just this development, but for obviously for Lone Tree. It's all about, emergency access.
sure.
What's the dotted lines in that northeast corner there? It's going across here at a 45-degree angle on this P1. And that-
There's a utility easement
is that a
going
utility
across
easement?
there. I'm not sure what the utility is. You can see the water main. Zoom in a lot here. The water main is kind of going to the back end of the properties, but that's some type of utility easement that's going at that angle.
Do you know whether it's an underground, like a gas, or an overhead, like an electric lines? Or
That looks like an
I
overhead.
think it's overhead.
Power, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's overhead.
Are there any gas lines out in that neck of the woods?
I don't know about gas. I don't think we have anything, a
Maybe there
gas
isn't.
map. I don't know.
There's gas in the subdivision. Well, I mean, out in the county road.
Maybe on Long Lake Road, you mean?
Well, the Lone Tree has it. They'll have gas. The gas is, I'm sure it's up Zimmerman Road too, to the end.
Okay.
But I don't think it's a concern. It's,
More thoughts, or do you have any questions for us?
I don't think so. I was just taking some notes as I was listening and regarding all of your feedback with the walkability and the connection to Lone Tree, and then getting confirmation on some of the stormwater engineering that came from the architect and the engineer we're currently working with. So I want to get some clarification from them on that. Do you know, as far as the Zimmerman to Harris connection, if there's any pending plans for that, or is that more of a road commission question?
been a long time dream.
Right.
I think it's,
And
I think it's the plans for the road commission to do that. I mean,
Yeah.
that's been their plan. I mean, as I mentioned, the connection that's been there, established right there was part of the PUD. Beyond that, I guess it's gonna require maybe a
Yeah.
group effort to extend that forward.
yeah, because I think where Zimmerman would go into Harris, I'm curious about the adjacent property to the east as well, if there's an easement for it there
There
also.
isn't anything that I'm aware of, but
Okay.
that would be, you're right, that would be needed in order to make that alignment
it
to Harris
happen.
to work.
They'd
Right.
either get an easement or even eminent domain if they had to get a little
Yeah.
chunk somewhere to make it happen, but.
Right.
Yeah, it mostly happens to fall on this one, but yeah, to angle it back in. We, I think, once saw a conceptual review, but we've never seen any development proposal, formal submittal for that site, I don't think.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Just
there's nothing
curious.
at this time, but that's what
Yeah.
there would be, easement on essentially both sides of that line there so that it would
Yeah.
make
Right.
that alignment
Yeah.
work.
That's the so-called Samuelson property, isn't it?
Correct.
Gravel
I
pit?
think so, yeah.
I
If
do know
anything
the
did
road
happen, it could
commission
be a
is
catalyst for
concerned
that.
about that
Right,
Harris
that's kinda what I
connection
was
To
thinking.
Long Lake Road,
Yeah.
where that curve is at, there's concern about that. And
Yes.
There's no plan, but there was at least discussion that should that connection from Zimmerman to Harris be made, that they may possibly eliminate that connection over there, just because of the dangerous intersection there that's located.
I mean, I
At
feel
Harris
unsafe
and
every
Long.
time I try to turn left off of North Long Lake onto Harris right there.
Yeah.
Trying to get northwest of town to Leelanau, yeah.
Quick maneuvering.
Mm-hmm.
Just came there from there today.
All right, well, hope we've given you some thoughts
Yes.
as you move forward, and we look forward
Yes.
to seeing a full application from you.
Thank you. We really appreciate your time. Thanks.
Well, and with that, we're on to our next, our final public comment. I think you're probably all done, right? Okay, very good. With that, we'll move on to other business, which I don't think there is any. So, items for our next agenda on June 25th.
So that's your study session. We were going to give you a draft copy of the CIP that's being developed for the township. We were also going to provide you some additional information and follow up to discussion regarding the corridor plan. I was going to share some information from the 2019 East-West corridor study that was done by the Grand Traverse County Road Commission. In particularly those things that relate to the South Airport Road corridor. Beyond that, I don't know if there was other things that we were going to talk about.
Did we get anything on signs yet, or
Yeah,
knew you were gonna ask that, John Racine?
You read my mind.
So the topic of the 2019 East-West Corridor Study will lead into the conversation that we had not too long ago about looking at engaging in a corridor master plan.
Yeah, at this point, I mean, I've kind of talked to Chris Barchef, Township Manager, about presentation to the Township Board about this. We've kind of outlined and as a matter of fact, maybe we should share that with you. So from that conversation, I've kind of developed a PowerPoint that maybe kind of lays it out a little bit more in terms of, a process that at least initially would be more of a investigation and conversations and discussions between different stakeholders as seeing about what their interests are. And then from that, actually determine the scope of a actual planning project. So just kind of continued some of that conversation a little bit with the Planning Commission here. But the next step is to really kind of present that to the Township Board and see if there's, what there is feeling about whether to proceed with that or not.
Okay. Well, look forward to seeing everybody else on June 25th.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Thanks, Bob. We're adjourned.